Standing by.
Okay, 1904, second last call for check-ins. ZS6IP is standing by. I'd also like to add that if you don't have the Zoom link, please contact me on WhatsApp 082-859-2684, and I'll send you the link with the greatest of pleasure. And of course, that is open to everybody, radio amateurs, disaster relief cert volunteers, and also members of the public. So if you don't have the link, let me know and I'll give it to you, and then you can share it with everybody. 1905, last call for check-ins. ZS6IP is standing by. Okay, nothing else heard. Greetings to one and all and welcome to this week's net. It is Sunday, the 26th of February, 2023, and the time is 1905. We begin the weekly net with the radio amateur check-in on the Roodepoort repeater for approximately 5 minutes before proceeding. This net is broadcast every Sunday evening starting at 1900 and is broadcast for the benefit of radio amateurs, disaster relief cert volunteers, and the members of the general public and other interested parties. Everyone is welcome to participate using amateur radio or Zoom or both if you so choose. I'd also like to remind all the amateur radio listeners who have not checked in that you do not need to be a member of any group or club to check in or to use the repeater or any other amateur radio bands. All that is required from you is that you have a valid amateur radio license issued by ICASA, which automatically grants you the right to use any of the amateur radio bands at any time. There is no need to ask for or be granted permission from anyone else to use the repeaters or the amateur radio bands. Okay, ZS6IP returning. I'd also like to encourage all listeners and participantship to share the weekly net Zoom link with everyone they know throughout South Africa. Doing so will help us grow the weekly net and will contribute to disseminating information as far and wide as possible. That being said, it's now time to unpack the weekly COVID-19 figures. Well, I don't know if I'm going to be unpacking them or trying to scratch them out of the junk box. So let's get started. Globally, our figures are at 674,983,000, at least 333, compared to last week's figure of 673,958,606. This is yet again an increase of 1.02 million, much lower than what we've seen in the previous weeks. The death toll stands at 6,870,000 compared to the 6,862,000 from the previous week. Okay, ZS6IP is returning. Now, been notified via various platforms that many of the COVID-19 tracking institutions are shutting down their systems during the month of March 2023. And as a result of this, this will be the last time that we'll unpack the COVID-19 stats on this net. And that includes the SA stats, because I must tell you, we can't find them anymore. They are all over the place. For some reason, the figures are just skewed across the board. Last week's figures don't follow this week's figures for last week. They don't match up with the previous week. They don't match up with the totals. Right, moving on to Mpox. Mpox has now been reported at 86,127 cases globally as at the 18th of February. This is in total compared to the previous week's total of 85,892. Unfortunately, that's quite a substantial increase of 235, double of last week's 112. South Africa has still not reported any cases. ZS6 OPS returning, I should say, has not reported any more cases, as they in actual fact did have a figure of 5 since the outbreak. Now, following the current outbreak of the measles, I'm including these figures in the weekly net in the interest of public health. And as at 23 February 2023, South Africa has some figure that seems to be unknown, 592 cases compared to 583. And the reason I say that is because, again, they are adding possibly late reported figures for the relevant week. So if one of the labs is a month behind on its reporting, then these figures have been added to a month ago, which is skewing the figures. However, Limpopo is still leading the pack with 195 cases, or at least 204 compared to 195, followed by the Northwest with 176 compared to 173 from last week. And of course, Gauteng is at 67 now, compared to 59 from the previous week. Also, last week I reported that there was a cholera outbreak and 5 cases, etc. I think it was 3 in Pretoria, 2 in Gauteng. Well, this week the news media and the health department have actually reported that of the 5, 1 of them has passed away. So now we have cholera death at 1. We will have to watch out for the cholera cases, especially due to the load shedding, which is impacting the water supply, which is going to impact the sewage systems. And of course, that there has already been affected in many, many, many areas. And I want to tell you, the people on the west of Joburg are very fortunate, even though they might not be without electricity, like some of our radio amateurs in the Stubens Valley, Little Falls, Honeydew area. We are still extremely lucky insofar as we've still got water at times. We still got sewage that is flushing, etc. ZS6 OPS returning. Now, in other news, the flooding throughout the country is still an issue. And of course, this is causing havoc, especially regarding damage to the infrastructure, to roads and properties. Those downstream this week of the Bloemhof Dam saw extensive flooding this week as the sluice gates were opened on that side. In general news, as I reported last week, Cape Talk reported that SA mobile networks are struggling to provide internet access due to the load shedding, and I must admit that this entire communications network is under serious strain, not only due to the load shedding, but also the theft of cables, batteries, and as reported this week, it has been confirmed that there is a syndicate targeting cell phone towers. This is a serious concern for communications with regards to emergency services. ZS6 OPS returning. Now, I've said this in the last month, and I think I'll drop it off from next week, but to avoid confusion when discussing disaster, emergencies, and health-related information, I must point out that the term West Rand does not cover any areas of the western side of Johannesburg. The term West Rand refers to the West Rand District Municipality, which is the areas of Merafeng City, Miguel City, and Rand West City, which is Randfontein, Miguel, Krugersdorp, and Carltonville in reverse order. So therefore, this does not include any areas of Joburg whatsoever. So perhaps it's time to get the facts out into the universe, and I think Adrian has frozen. ZS6 OPS returning, which just brings me to that ultimate statement that even the internet connections are failing. So in closing, I'd like to encourage everyone to register as a disaster relief volunteer and to start preparing and to train to assist local communities when a disaster strikes. So be aware of the keyword disaster. Radio amateurs who have not checked in as yet, please provide your call sign now and I'll add you to this week's check-in list. ZS6 OPS standing by. Okay, nothing heard there. ZS6 OPS returning. I'd like to thank all of those who have checked in this week, as well as those who joined via Zoom. Now, even though the COVID-19 figures might not be reported from next week, I'd still like to remind you that the pandemic is still ongoing and is still infecting, well, at least 1 million weekly now at this moment in time. So to please remember to physically distance yourself and to wear a mask to protect others, especially the elderly, who could lose their lives if infected with COVID-19. Remember that it is always best to sanitize or wash your hands on a regular basis in any event. Therefore, for the week moving forward, be safe, be prepared, and of course, be happy. This is ZS6 OPS now releasing 145.625 for general use. Cheers all.